Doctrine and Covenants, Section 102. Minutes of the Organization of the First High Council of the Church at Kirtland, Ohio, February 17th, 1834. The original minutes were recorded by Elders Oliver Cowdery and Orson Hyde. The prophet revised the minutes the following day, and the next day the corrected minutes were unanimously accepted by the High Council as a form and constitution of the High Council of the Church. Verses 30 through 32, having to do with the Council of the 12 Apostles, were added in 1835 under Joseph Smith's direction, when this section was prepared for publication in the Doctrine and Covenants. A High Council is appointed to settle important difficulties that arise in the Church. Procedures are given for hearing cases. The President of the Council renders the decision. Appellate procedure is set forth. This day, a general council of 24 high priests assembled at the house of Joseph Smith, Jr. by revelation, and proceeded to organize the High Council of the Church of Christ, which was to consist of 12 high priests and 1 or 3 presidents as the case might require. The High Council was appointed by revelation for the purpose of settling important difficulties which might arise in the Church, which could not be settled by the Church or the Bishop's Council to the satisfaction of the parties. Joseph Smith, Jr., Sidney Rigdon, and Frederick G. Williams were acknowledged presidents by the voice of the council, and Joseph Smith, Sr., John Smith, Joseph Coe, John Johnson, Martin Harris, John S. Carter, Jared Carter, Oliver Cowdery, Samuel H. Smith, Orson Hyde, Sylvester Smith, and Luke Johnson, high priests, were chosen to be a standing council for the church by the unanimous voice of the council. The above-named counselors were then asked whether they accepted their appointments and whether they would act in that office according to the law of heaven, to which they all answered that they accepted their appointments and would fill their offices according to the grace of God bestowed upon them. The number composing the council who voted in the name and for the church in appointing the above-named counselors was 43, as follows: 9 high priests, 17 elders, 4 priests, and 13 members voted that the High Council cannot have power to act without 7 of the above-named counselors or their regularly appointed successors are present. These 7 shall have power to appoint other high priests whom they may consider worthy and capable to act in the place of absent counselors. Voted that whenever any vacancy shall occur by the death, removal from office for transgression, or removal from the bounds of this church government of any one of the above-named counselors, it shall be filled by the nomination of the president or presidents, and sanctioned by the voice of a general council of high priests, convened for that purpose to act in the name of the church. The president of the church, who is also the president of the council, is appointed by revelation and acknowledged in his administration by the voice of the church. And it is according to the dignity of his office that he should preside over the council of the church, and it is his privilege to be assisted by 2 other presidents appointed after the same manner that he himself was appointed, and in case of the absence of one or both of those who are appointed to assist him, he has power to preside over the council without an assistant, and in case he himself is absent, the other presidents have power to preside in his stead, both or either of them. Whenever a high council of the Church of Christ is regularly organized according to the foregoing pattern, it shall be the duty of the 12 counselors to cast lots by numbers, and thereby ascertain who of the 12 shall speak first, commencing with number 1, and so in succession to number 12. Whenever this council convenes to act upon any case, the 12 counselors shall consider whether it is a difficult one or not. If it is not, 2 only of the counselors shall speak upon it, according to the form above written. But if it is thought to be difficult, 4 shall be appointed, and if more difficult, 6, but in no case shall be more than 6 be appointed to speak. The accused in all cases has a right to 1/2 of the council to prevent insult or injustice, and the counselors appointed to speak before the council are to present the case, after the evidence is examined, in its true light before the council, and every man is to speak according to equity and justice. Those counselors who draw even numbers, that is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12, are the individuals who are to stand up in behalf of the accused and prevent insult and injustice. In all cases, the accuser and the accused shall have a privilege of speaking for themselves before the council, after the evidences are heard and the counselors who are appointed to speak on the case have finished their remarks. After the evidences are heard, the counselors, accuser, and accused have spoken, the president shall give a decision according to the understanding which he shall have of the case, and call upon the 12 counselors to sanction the same by their vote. But should the remaining counselors who have not spoken, or any of them after hearing the evidences and pleadings impartially, discover an error in the decision of the president, they can manifest it, and the case shall have a rehearing. And if, after a careful rehearing, any additional light is shown upon the case, the decision shall be altered accordingly. But, in case no additional light is given, the first decision shall stand, the majority of the council having power to determine the same. In case of difficulty respecting doctrine or principle, if there is not a sufficiency written to make the case clear to the minds of the council, the president may inquire and obtain the mind of the Lord by revelation. The high priests, when abroad, have power to call and organize a council after the manner of the foregoing to settle difficulties, when the parties or either of them shall request it. And the said council of high priests shall have power to appoint one of their own number to preside over such council for the time being. It shall be the duty of said council to transmit immediately a copy of their proceedings with a full statement of the testimony accompanying their decision to the high council of the seat of the first presidency of the church. Should the parties or either of them be dissatisfied with the decision of said council, they may appeal to the high council of the seat of the first presidency of the church, and have a rehearing, which case shall there be conducted according to the former pattern written, as though no such decision had been made. This council of high priests abroad is only to be called on the most difficult cases of church matters, and no common or ordinary case is to be sufficient to call such council. The traveling or located high priests abroad have power to say whether it is necessary to call such a council or not. There is a distinction between the high council or traveling high priests abroad and the traveling high council composed of the 12 apostles and their decisions. From the decision of the former there can be an appeal, but from the decision of the later there cannot. The latter can only be called in question by the general authorities of the church in the case of transgression. Resolved, that the president or presidents of the seat of the first presidency of the church shall have power to determine whether any such case as may be appealed is justly entitled to a rehearing, after examining the appeal and the evidences and statements accompanying it. The 12 counselors then proceeded to cast lots or ballot to ascertain who should speak first, and the following was the result, namely 1. Oliver Cowdery, 2. Joseph Coe, 3. Samuel H. Smith, 4. Luke Johnson, 5. John S. Carter, 6. Sylvester Smith, 7. John Johnson, 8. Orson Hyde, 9. Jared Carter, 10. Joseph Smith Sr., 11. John Smith, 12. Martin Harris. After prayer, the conference adjourned. Oliver Cowdery, Orson Hyde, clerks. Section 103. Revelation given through Joseph Smith the prophet at Kirtland, Ohio, February 24, 1834. This revelation was received after the arrival in Kirtland, Ohio, of Parley P. Pratt and Lyman White, who had came from Missouri to counsel with the prophet as to the relief and restoration of the saints to their lands in Jackson County. Why the Lord permitted the saints in Jackson County to be persecuted. The saints will prevail if they keep the commandments. The redemption of Zion will come by power, and the Lord will go before his people. The saints are to gather in Zion, and those who lay down their lives will find them again. Various brethren are called to organize Zion's camp and go to Zion. They are promised victory if they are faithful. Verily I say unto you, my friends, behold, I will give unto you a revelation and commandment, that you may know how to act in discharge of your duties concerning the salvation and redemption of your brethren, who have been scattered on the land of Zion, being driven and smitten by the hands of mine enemies, on whom I will pour out my wrath without measure in mine own time. For I have suffered them thus far, that they might fill up the measure of their iniquities, that their cup might be full, and that those who call themselves after my name might be chastened for a little season, with a sore and grievous chastisement, because they did not hearken altogether unto the precepts and commandments which I gave unto them. But verily I say unto you that I have decreed a decree, which my people shall realize, inasmuch as they hearken from this very hour unto the counsel which I, the Lord their God, shall give unto them. Behold, they shall, for I have decreed it, begin to prevail against mine enemies from this very hour, and by hearkening to observe all the words which I, the Lord their God, shall speak unto them, They shall never cease to prevail until the kingdoms of the world are subdued under my feet, and the earth is given unto the saints to possess it for ever and ever. But inasmuch as they keep not my commandments, and hearken not to observe all my words, the kingdoms of the world shall prevail against them. For they were set to be a light unto the world, and to be the saviors of men. And inasmuch as they are not the saviors of men, they are as salt that has lost its savor, and is thenceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out and trodden under foot of men. But verily I say unto you, I have decreed that your brethren, which have been scattered, shall return to the lands of their inheritances, and shall build up the waste places of Zion. For after much tribulation, as I have said unto you in a former commandment, cometh the blessing. Behold, this is the blessing which I have promised after your tribulations and the tribulations of your brethren, your redemption and the redemption of your brethren, even their restoration to the land of Zion, to be established, no more to be thrown down. Nevertheless, if they pollute their inheritances, they shall be thrown down, for I will not spare them if they pollute their inheritances. Behold, I say unto you, the redemption of Zion must needs come by power. Therefore I will raise up unto my people a man, who shall lead them like as Moses led the children of Israel. For ye are the children of Israel, and of the seed of Abraham, and ye must needs be led out of bondage by power and with a stretched out arm. And as your fathers were led at the first, even so shall the redemption of Zion be. Therefore let not your hearts faint. For I say not unto you as I said unto your fathers, Mine angel shall go up before you, but not my presence. But I say unto you, Mine angel shall go up before you, and also my presence. And in time you shall possess the goodly land. Verily, verily, I say unto you, that my servant Joseph Smith Jr. is the man to whom I likened the servant to whom the Lord of the vineyard spake in the parable which I have given unto you. Therefore let my servant Joseph Smith Jr. say unto the strength of my house, My young men and the middle-aged, gather yourselves together unto the land of Zion, upon the land which I have bought with money that has been consecrated unto me. And let all the churches send up wise men with their monies, and purchase lands even as I have commanded them. And inasmuch as mine enemies come against you to drive you from my goodly land, which I have consecrated to be the land of Zion, even from your own lands, after these testimonies which ye have brought before me against them, ye shall curse them. And whomsoever ye curse, I will curse, and ye shall avenge me of mine enemies. And my presence shall be with you, even in avenging me of mine enemies, unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me. Let no man be afraid to lay down his life for my sake. For whoso layeth down his life for my sake shall find it again, and whoso is not willing to lay down his life for my sake is not my disciple. It is my will that servant Sidney Rigdon shall lift up his voice in the congregations of the eastern countries, and preparing the churches to keep the commandments which I have given unto them concerning the restoration and redemption of Zion. It is my will that my servant Parley P. Pratt and my servant Lyman White should not return to the land of their brethren until they have obtained companies to go up unto the land of Zion by tens or by twenties or by fifties or by 100, until they have obtained the number of 500 of the strength of my house. Behold, this is my will. Ask, and ye shall receive. But men do not always do my will. Therefore, if you cannot obtain 500, seek diligently that you peradventure you may obtain 300. And if you cannot obtain 300, seek diligently that peradventure you may obtain 100. But verily I say unto you, a commandment I give unto you, that you shall not go up to the land of Zion until you have obtained 100 of the strength of my house, to go up with you unto the land of Zion. Therefore, as I said unto you, ask and ye shall receive. Pray earnestly, that peradventure my servant Joseph Smith Jr. may go with you, and preside in the midst of my people, and organize my kingdom upon the consecrated land, and establish the children of Zion upon the laws and commandments which have been and which shall be given unto you. All victory and glory is brought to pass unto you through your diligence, faithfulness, and prayers of faith. Let my servant Parley B. Pratt journey with my servant Joseph Smith Jr. Let my servant Lyman White journey with my servant Sidney Rigdon. Let my servant Hiram Smith journey with my servant Frederick G. Williams. Let my servant Orson Hyde journey with my servant Orson Pratt. Whithersoever my servant Joseph Smith Jr. shall counsel them in obtaining the fulfillment of these commandments, which I have given unto you, and leave the residue in my hands, even so. Amen.